Hello everyone and welcome to the first in a brand new series of videos. I am entitling Blender Cool Stuff because basically that's what it is. The target of these videos is to make some cool animated or robotic or whatever stuff we can make very simply and easily using Blender's powerful systems. And today we're going to be mainly looking at Blender's curve editor, and we're going to be trying to make something like this. Now this is kind of sort of a metallic snake thing. It's very much tying organic with metallic sort of objects, but the feature I want to really show off is the curve editor, because as you can see each one of these segments is all linked up and following the curve, and it's really easy to create. So without further ado, I'm just going to go down and click on Blender. As you can see, I'm using Blender 2.63. I'm just going to click to dismiss that. And what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to delete our default clue by hitting the delete or X key, and go Shift A, add mesh cylinder. Okay, so I have this cylinder. I'm just going to go R, X 90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the X axis, and I'm just going to hit S, Y to scale it down slightly on the Y axis. You're going to hit 3, number pad 3 to go into the right hand view, and number pad 5 to make sure I'm in orthographic view. I'm just going to select this top vertex up here, go back into side view, and then hit O for proportional editing. I'm going to go G, Y. Now if you can't see this circle here, this sort of circle of influence, then what you need to do is just scroll down your mouse or hit the plus and minus buttons on your keyboard, and that will make the circle bigger and smaller until you can see it on your screen. This is basically what the proportional editing is going to influence. So hitting O means that as I move this, you can see not only is it moving that one vertex, it's moving a whole load of other vertices, which is really the effect I want to create. So I'm just going to make this influence circle really big, and I'm just going to drag it across like this and click, and same on this side. I'm just going to select the top vertex, G, Y, to match it up. Then I'm going to hit Control R, add 2 loop cuts. I didn't want it there. Let's try that again. I'm going to try put them quite close to the edges. And I'm just going to go to the bottom of the screen and click this little face select so I can select some faces, and select these 3 faces on either side, and hit E to extrude, and then S, hit O to turn off proportional editing, then hit S, X just to extrude it on the X axis, and then on each side I'm just going to select these vertices, hitting B to do that, select these faces, scale them down, you can hit 0.5 to make them half of the size, S 0.5, and the same on the other side. I'm just going to go up to the toolbar here, hit smooth shading, and I'm also going to go over to the buttons window and add the modifier of a edge split right here. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep the smooth shading, as you can see, around the edges, but where we come to a big thick edge like the edge of the cylinder there, it's just going to round that into a nice sharp edge, which is what we want. Okay. So this is the very basics. The last thing I'm going to add is I'm just going to go into front view and add another cylinder. Scale it down a lot. Again, go RX 90 and bring it forward on the X axis. I'm going to scale this down even more. This is just going to be the central spine running down our snake. Now this could be any object. It doesn't matter for what we're going to do later on. But there we go. That's our very basic sort of snake segment. And you'll see how this is going to work in a minute. I'm going to go modifier stack and add an array modifier. As you can see, it's put it on the complete wrong side, so I'm just going to zero that out, find out which side. Oh, it's not that one. Let's put it 1 on the Z axis. I'm just going to decrease this until you can see these overlap, and then I'm going to increase the count to something like 100. And as you can see, that's created a ridiculous huge long snake, and you think, I'm never going to use that. I'm just going to scale them all down by hitting S and go G to go across, and that's the modelling phase done. So I'm just going to hit M and move this to a new layer for now. And now I'm just going to start on our curve. So I'm going to go Shift A, add curve, and I'm just going to select path. And as you can see, it's added this line to the middle. And this is just, it may not seem like a mesh because it isn't a mesh. It's actually something we can use with our mesh to deform it in a certain way. So I'm going to hit R, Z, 90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the Z axis so it matches up our curve. And if I hit tab to go into edit mode, you can see I've got these points, and if I hit G, it can affect our curve. So I'm going to hit 7 to go into the top view mode and start shaping which way I want my snake to go. And the same as any mesh, if I hit E, I can extrude it further. I might want the snake to come up and around perhaps, and then I think what I'm going to do is have it go off screen this way. So you can see now, if I hit tab again to go back into object mode, I'm going to hit 0 to go into camera mode and zoom that out. GZZ, put it in the local Z axis and zoom that out. There we go, that's our curve. Now I'm just going to go over into the buttons window and rename this to curve path. Going to go into my other layer where I've got my snake stored. Right click that, hit M again, move it to layer 1. And now I'm going to actually make it follow this curve. Now this is as easy as going to the modifier stack and selecting the curve modifier. And under object you should only have one option, which is your curve path. So I'm just going to type that in. Sorry, this is messing up for me a bit. Let me just click up here and remember the name. Yes, curve path without space. There we go, and you can see now that it's following that curve path. And if I drag it along the y-axis, you may not be able to see this very much in the recording, but it's actually going along that curve path exactly as we want. Just going to hit 0 to go into the camera mode, and I'm just going to go F12 to do a quick render. And as you can see, that is following the curve beautifully, and this could be any curve you like. I'm just going to reframe my camera slightly, and the rest of this tutorial is really going to be about your materials and how you light your scene. So I'm going to delete our default point light and go into lamp and add a sun light. I'm going to move the sun up and rotate it on the y-axis by hitting RY. You can actually see what I'm pushing down in the bottom left of the corner. Then GX to move it on the x-axis, and then let's do another render, and that just creates a completely even lighting from one side, and I like the way that looks. So I'm happy with that. I'm just going to move this slightly further along the y-axis by hitting GY, just so it follows that curve slightly more. And you can get this to a point you like, and if you wanted to, remember how we added 100? I'm just going to drag that up slightly so it fills up most of that curve. So that was about 130. There we go. I'm just going to go into wireframe view for now, and I'm going to start adding some other objects to our scene. So I'm going to go Shift A, add mesh cube. So I want something for this to go around. Now this is all to your own taste. This is just something I used in my original example, so I'm just going to copy that here. I'm just going to raise it up on the Z axis, just make sure it's properly in line. There we go, so we've got a cube, something for it to go around. Just going to duplicate that and make a smaller version of the same object, and just make sure that's sitting flush on the floor. Then Shift A, add plane. Again, I'm going to make sure that's on the floor because this is going to act as our floor. And let's do another render. And again, this is all to your own taste. In fact, I'm not quite liking how bright that light is, so I'm just going to go into the light tools and turn the energy down slightly, maybe to 0.8. Let's do another test. There we go, that's looking better. Okay, so now let's start thinking about our materials. So I'm going to select the snake, and I'm just going to copy across the material I used in the original example. So I'm going to click to add a new material, call it snake. Now if you want any more in-detailed tutorials about how materials work, you can check out my Blender Basics materials tutorial, in which we're going to go through and have gone through a lot on specularity and how the materials actually work, and how to use the node editor if you wanted to add your own image. So let's just get started. I'm going to make the material jet black. I'm going to turn the hardness of the specularity up to something like 500, and in the intensity up as well. You can see that updating in the preview window. I'm just going to collapse those for now. I'd like my snake to be all metallic, so I'm going to activate mirror and turn this up to about 0.4, and then under the freshnel amount I'm just going to drag that up, and I'm not quite sure what this actually is doing, but as you can see what effect it has, it just adds in some more of the colour, so you only get that reflection at the edge. I'm actually going to turn this down to about 0.2. I think that looks better. Apart from that, I'm pretty happy with that material. Let's just go F12. This isn't going to run very quickly because I'm doing the screen recording. That's roughly what I'd like for this material. Now to add some materials to our cubes and talk about doing some more test renders. So on the main cube I'm going to add a material, call it green. Under diffuse, you guessed it, we're going to make a green cube. And specularity, I'm going to turn the intensity to 0, so that's matte. On this I'm going to call it red, and make this, oh yeah, a red cube. And turn again the specularity down to 0. The floor I think I'm going to leave as it is for now. I may just give it a slight blue tinge, make sure the specularity is on 0 again, because I don't want any light reflecting off this. Just very subtle blue. And then I'm just going to create the walls of the room. So go Shift D, R90, and move out to create roughly 4 walls in the room. So let's just do wall number 2, RZ180, so it's facing the right way. Shift D for wall number 3. Oops, I lost it. There we go. And let's just make sure that's in line correctly. Scale it up slightly so it fills all that space. Shift D again, RZ180, so it faces the right way. Okay, go into top view and just move that over to here. There we go. So if I go back into solid mode, you can see we've got our 4 walls and we've got our setup. I'm just going to move this slightly. Actually, is that going to be seen by the camera? Well, the camera isn't seeing anything. Let's just go GZZ to move it forward a bit. Maybe even a bit more. And the last thing I'm going to do is under my render settings, I'm going to set the render to 100%, and I'm going to activate under the world settings the ambient occlusion settings, or occlusion, I'm not quite sure how to say it. I want to set this to multiply, but Blender isn't playing ball with the screen capture. There we go. Set the factor something like 0.3. And after that I'm just going to save my file and my blend files. So that would be under my documents, blend files. I'm going to call this snake tutorial. And then I'm just going to do a test render, and I'll get back to you once this is rendered. Okay, so this is the rendered result I've just got out of Blender. As you can see, it's a bit different from the one I had in the original example, but that's because in the original example I had a bit more time to tweak and edit some of the settings over here, and that's why I encourage you to fiddle about with shadows and different ways you can change the shading here. But what I wanted to show you is the powerful curve and modifiers you can add in Blender, and how they can really be integrated to make something cool. If you like this tutorial, if you think it was something cool and you'd like to see more of this, then hit the like button. If you would like to follow this tutorial, then subscribe to either the playlist or my channel for the basics and the Blender tutorials. If you didn't get some of what happened here, then slow down the video, re-watch it. I know I went through quite quickly. If you didn't understand some of the concepts, then look at my basics Blender tutorials, and I'll see you next time.